What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Happy Monday. It's not a victory Monday because the Seahawks did not play yesterday, but it kind of feels like one because the Seahawks find themselves in first place after yesterday's events. So, given that we don't have a game to talk about, and this is obviously going to be a little bit of an unconventional week on the channel, what we are going to do is continue to talk about trade deadline stuff. We're going to continue to look at some of these really bad teams that might be looking to offload some salary, offload some contracts, try to acquire some draft picks, and just get a feel for what might be available out there. And we've already talked about the Jets and we've already talked about the Dolphins, who both actually won this week. So let's talk about a team that did not win this last week. Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans, a team that looks as hopeless as any team out there and only has one win themselves. Back in 60 seconds. All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. Welcome back. So, generally speaking, it seems like the Tennessee Titans, more than any other team in the league, are making everything they have available. Um, I would assume, of course, that Cam Ward is not part of that. And apparently, they're also making a couple of other players untouchable, guys like Jeffrey Simmons. I would assume they wouldn't be willing to trade any rookies in general. So a guy like Ayo Manor, probably not on the block. It doesn't make sense to trade somebody you literally just got and is still very young. But it almost seems like everything that is not nailed down can get traded from this Titans team. So if you want something that you think can make your team better for the rest of the season, definitely call up the Titans because it sounds like they are putting everything on the table outside of a few untouchable pieces. So let's take a look at what they got here. I know that there's been at least one Seahawks fan in my comments that has talked about Calvin Ridley. That one doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally, so I'm not really going to get into that too much. I know that Skoronski is supposedly available, but while I would have loved to do that a year ago, it doesn't make as much sense now because Skoronski's probably a left guard and not much else in this league. And I don't think I'm willing to give up an asset to find out if Skoronski can play right guard or center or something like that. I remember thinking that he was a pretty pure left guard coming out of college, and you'd have to give up a real asset to get him. This was a very high draft pick. And even though he hasn't been stellar so far, I think you're still giving up like a second round pick for him. He's still pretty young, still pretty um cheap on his contract, relatively speaking. I think you'd have to give up some serious money here, so I don't think that's on the table. There are two guys on the offensive lineman we should spend at least a few minutes talking about. The first is center Lloyd Cushenberry the third. So Lloyd has been okay so far this year, not stellar, but probably a little bit of a better player, at least something of an upgrade over what we have with Jalen Sundle. He's been in the league a while. He was a Bronco for a little while. If you go back to 2024, again, the grade is not great, but again, we're just trying to get a little bit better than what we have in theory. Go back to 2023, though. This was back when he was on, I believe, the Broncos. Graded very well. So when he was actually given a good offensive coach, some good offensive line teammates, and some general competency in general around him, he was graded very well. When you put him with the incompetency that has been the Titans the last 2 years, maybe the worst team in the league over the last year and a half, hasn't been so good. But there's reason to believe this guy's a good player. Now, A year and a half ago, he signed a 4-year, $50 million contract, one of the biggest center contracts in the league. So he's not easily tradable, but it is tradable if you go to over the cap and sort by post June 1st trade. There is dead money involved. Tennessee would have to eat significant dead money over the next few years, but they are saving money, and there's still some benefit here to them. I mean, if you're the Tennessee Titans, you're looking at Cushenberry, who's currently 28, who isn't necessarily earning the doing a great job earning the money the Titans have paid him. You might look at this as an opportunity to go get, say, a 4th-round pick for him, just be rid of the rest of his contract, and be able to move on. Now, you are inheriting a pretty sizable deal, but remember, because of the way NFL contracts work, you wouldn't really have to worry too much about that because it would become fully non-guaranteed on your end. Because the Titans are the ones that have to worry about the bonus, and the base salary is non-guaranteed, so you can redo the deal, you can cut them if you don't like what you see at the end of the year and it's not a big deal. There are ways. There are definitely ways. But you're going to have to offer something fairly significant to get Cushenberry, and I think a 4th-round pick gets it done, but I'm not sure either because there is some significant dead money here. Again, it kind of comes back to the fact that Cushenberry has not been great as a Titan, but by that same token, do you want to take your chances on Cushenberry being able to play better once you get him? This next one is kind of the easy button pick, right? This one makes sense on a couple different levels, and it might be your only chance to get an upgrade at right guard over Anthony Bradford. This is probably the most common sense play. Kevin Zeitler, this guy's been in the league forever. He's still playing really good. He's played good the last several years. He's been on some really good teams. Probably miserable on that Titans team. Probably like culture shock for him. Very used to being on elite teams these last few years, and now he's on one of the worst teams in the league. There's every reason to believe he still has something left in the tank. I mean, even last year, he was one of the best guards in football. His contract, it's a 1-year deal, $9 million, $5 million of it was signing bonus, and obviously he's made his game check so far from the Titans this year. So you wouldn't inherit that much money. Now, the flip side of that, Tennessee has to eat a decent amount of money on a trade. So you're probably going to have to give up something, but it's not going to be that much, I don't think. He's 35 years old. He's on a 1-year deal. Like, what is Zeitler doing for the Tennessee Titans? Nothing. He's getting in the way of younger players that they might want to take a look at. There's just not a big reason for them to keep him around. He's not helping them win, obviously. They have 1 win so far this year, and that 1 win was a fluke. And just overall, there's no reason for him to remain in Tennessee. So, if anything, if for no other reason than just doing this guy a favor, they might be looking to trade him, and you might be able to get him for like a 5th-round pick. I don't think it'll be a 6th or a 7th, just because of the significant money that Tennessee has to eat here, but it could be. I don't think it's unreasonable. It could be for the same reason that I think a Woolen trade would be pretty cheap if Seattle were to go that way, which I don't think they will. But I think you're looking at about a 5th-round pick, and that's at most. That's at most. So this is definitely something I would be trying to make happen if Tennessee is willing to put him out there. And again, the indication is that the Titans are willing to put pretty much anything out there. Okay, so that's it for the offense. Not that there isn't some other stuff here that isn't worth kicking over, but I don't really want Tony Pollard. I don't know what Tony Pollard is going to do on this team. Again, the Calvin Ridley thing, I don't know. He's already making big money in this league. He's not old, but he's not really young anymore. I can't get excited for that one. So let's just jump over to the defense now. What do the Titans have on defense they might be willing to give up? Supposedly, they're not willing to part with Jeffrey Simmons. So cross that one off, and we don't really need another down lineman anyway. So let's look at some of these other defensive guys here. Cody Barton at linebacker. Keep in mind, Seattle doesn't really need a starter at linebacker. They just need good depth because they don't really have any depth right now. And Cody Barton might be that exact kind of player you're looking for, somebody who doesn't necessarily have to play every snap, but is a good break glass in case of emergency option when you're leaning so heavily on a Drake Thomas, which for the moment is working, but we are in a very dangerous situation with regards to linebacker because we have Tyrese Knight and nothing behind our two starters. So Cody Barton, I mean, we know the Cody Barton experience. It's mixed, right? It's not everything that we wanted it to be when we drafted him. But there's also some indications here that this is not necessarily a bad player either. My issue is I think that his game is kind of like a slightly better version of what you get out of Drake Thomas, in that you're getting some cover skills, you're getting some speed, but you're not really getting a guy that can take on blockers and really get involved in the run game. That's kind of redundant with what you're getting with Thomas. I think if you're trying to get depth or competition for Thomas, you should get a player that brings some things to the table that Drake Thomas does not. So it's not ideal, but again, Seattle desperately needs depth at the linebacker spot, and they may not be able to afford being choosy. One thing I will say, the last two teams that Cody Barton was on before this year, Washington and Denver, both came away very pleased with the Cody Barton experience. So there is some evidence here that he can bring good stuff to the table. I think Denver really misses him this year with Alex Singleton out there doing what he's doing. So Cody Barton, if Tennessee makes him available, I think you got to, at the very least, think about it. Now, the contract is not ideal because he signed a 3-year, $21 million deal last offseason. Not even 9 months ago, he signed this contract. So you're asking Tennessee to eat some fairly significant dead money in this year. Now, granted, whatever, the die is already cast. It's not like them eating an additional 1.1 million is going to be a big deal, but the dead money here does kind of stack up a little bit, and you can see that they're still going to be paying him a decent amount over these next couple years, even if they do this. Now, the good news is the signing bonus was not that big when they signed him. It was of a 20, what was it? Yeah, $21 million. The signing bonus was only 5.16. It's doable, and maybe Tennessee would say we'd rather just have this guy completely off the cap. We don't want to think about him anymore. It's within the realm of possibility for sure, and you're inheriting the base, which is substantial, but remember, it's base. You can redo the deal. You can cut him and not owe him anything after this year because of the way NFL contracts work. So it's not untenable. He's 29, so age is not a huge concern yet. It's definitely one of those things where you're just, you're not thrilled about it for sure. But again, I would argue we need linebacker depth just as much as we need a right guard. Like the linebacker depth on this team is completely untenable. We don't have anything except Tyrese Knight, who we've already shown we have no faith in right now for one reason or another. So I'm willing to turn over this rock if this is the only rock that's presented to me. Because the bonus money is relatively low, this should not be very expensive either, maybe the 5th or 6th round pick. I think this is worth flipping over. And there's another linebacker on this Titans team I want to talk about. This one's a little bit of a different case. And normally I would not talk about this guy, but according to the reports, the Titans are making almost everybody available. So let's talk about Cedric Gray for a second here. Second year player, former 4th round pick, only 23 years old. He's going to turn 23 in a few days here. So we're talking about a guy who is still very young. He was a bench warmer for the most part last year, didn't play very much. This year he's become a starter, putting in some decent work, nothing over the top great, but nothing on that Titans team is really going to be over the top great because they are so dysfunctional and so bereft of star players that can just help role players like this get over the top. So you take a look at Cedric Gray. I remember liking him a decent amount in the draft. I don't think he tested great overall, but I think it's hard to deny that this guy has a decent amount of upside that you're going to be able to work with. And again, we're not looking for some star outside linebacker here. We're not looking for one of the best outside linebackers in the league. We just need to give ourselves options in the event that the Drake Thomas thing goes sideways and Tyrese Knight can't get back to where he was last year. So the issue is, you look at Cedric Gray's contract again. He was a rookie last year. He's a second-year player this year. So he's very cheap, and Tennessee has control of him for the next 2.5 years. So therefore, this is somebody that they might look at and go, look, we can keep this guy around, and by the time we're ready to be good again, this guy's still going to be on the team potentially, as long as we do things the right way. Like, this is not a Zeitler situation. With Kevin Zeitler, the Titans are looking at him, probably thinking, obviously this guy will not be here by the time that we're good again. Cody Barton, they might be thinking the same thing to a certain extent because he's already 29. This is a very young player who clearly they liked enough to take in the 4th round. I imagine that they look at this and they go, okay, we could be good by 2027 very reasonably. That's not an unreasonable position. But the thing is, there's very little dead money if you do this. Maybe you've seen some things from him so far that you don't really like and you're just trying to cash out. You're talking about eating a couple $100,000, not even $1 million, not even close to $1 million in dead money. And you'll basically not even feel it. The base money transfers over to Seattle, and they'll obviously not mind that either because it's just a few $1,000,000 over the next 2.5 years. So that's fine. I just don't know what it's going to cost. Like, he was a 4th round pick 1.5 years ago. Maybe because he hasn't done that much and because it's been 1.5 years, it's a 5th round pick now. I don't know. This is something I would inquire about. It's something that I would at least strongly think about. I think that you got to at least think about it if you're this desperate for backup linebackers. And right now, I think this team really is. So that's that. There's one other guy I want to talk about, and it's a guy that I know a lot of Seahawks fans have talked about already. I've seen it in my comments. I've seen it in my Discord. It's not L'Jarius Sneed. I know there was some discussion about Sneed, but he's injured now, and I think he's on IR, so you can't trade for him. But Roger McCreary is a name. Roger McCreary, former 2nd round pick out of Auburn. He's had a pretty solid career so far, nothing over the top special, but he's been good for the Titans overall. He's their starting nickel corner, and this is something that Seattle could do if they want to reinforce their secondary because they're maybe concerned about some of these guys having the bottom drop out on them, or they're concerned about injuries. Like, Witherspoon's already missed time 2 separate occasions this year alone. So Roger McCreary, it's pretty straightforward here. Last year of his rookie deal, it's not a huge deal anyway. He is making about $3.7 million in base this year, but the Titans have already paid a portion of that because he's played 7 games for them. The signing bonus is pretty small, so it's not like the dead money hit is particularly significant. So you're inheriting a little more than $2 million. The Titans have to eat a little bit of dead money, which they were eating anyway because he's on the team this year. So that's not really a big consideration. And I imagine that they're not planning on bringing him back next year because he hasn't been over the top great. So Roger McCreary, I imagine that you're talking about something like, you're probably talking about like a 6th round pick, honestly. It'd be something similar to what you would get for Woolen. I can't imagine it being much more than that, and you'd get some real depth going. Something better than Nehemiah Pritchett, Shaq Griffin, Darion Kendrick, guys like that. So this is something that could be kind of a very low-key deadline deal that reinforces your team in a way that you didn't know you needed, but by the end of the year, you're like, man, I'm glad that guy was around. All right, that's really all I can see from the Titans that I think is worth talking about. Again, pretty much everything is available. There's very little that isn't, so you could have a conversation about almost anybody, but I'm going to keep it to those 5. I like Tavondre Sweat, but I'm over the nose tackle thing at this point. I think Seattle's kind of already said, more or less with their actions, they're happy with the way the nose tackle position is being handled right now. They got some veteran safeties there. I don't really think we need a safety. And again, this Skoronski thing, while I love Skoronski, it doesn't make sense now. It would have made sense a year ago. All right. So that's it for the Tennessee Titans. More stuff coming soon. Got a TikTok video going live later this morning as well. Keep an eye out for that. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you guys think I missed anything. And those are the people I would be calling the Titans about today.